Okay, so I figured that since I'm going to China, I need to understand the full story of where winds meet. And who better to explain this to me than Laufey? Right? I think it'd be very, very important to understand the exact full story, because at this point, I've done every major, like all the blue side quests. I've killed all the bosses. I've done a lot of lore research. I've done a lot of PvP, right? I've done a lot of guild stuff. So I've explored the majority of what the game has to offer in the global version. Maybe there's the thing here, like the green quest here. I've done all my oddities and stuff. I've leveled up all my gear. I'm max level. All my gear is yellow, except for my bow, which refuses to craft yellow. But, you know, it is what it is. It's purple, right? So everything's level 75 yellow. So, like, I've essentially completed the content that there is on global for Where Winds Meet. The big stuff, anyway, right? And now it's time to understand. I think that, you know, if I'm going to go to these places, it's probably important that I understand what exactly is going on. Because, see, okay, we learn about Chinese history in, like, the 4th or the 5th grade as American students.
Mill 1104
but in a much realer sense.
Guild Party Baldy Blue Squad Love.
But in a much realer sense, we never learn about it. You know what I mean? Because, like, I mean, like, for real though, it's, you know, it's America, right? So, like, how much do Chinese people know about George Washington? You know what I mean? Now, I know more about Chinese history than your average American, no question. And the reason is, China was always my favorite Asian country, at least like culture-wise. My brother always loved Japan. He was a big fan of Japan. And I always loved China, right? And the Chinese culture, the Chinese New Year, all that stuff, right? So, like, I've researched a lot more of that. He knows a lot more about Japanese culture and, like, Japanese history and things like this, and I know a lot more about Chinese culture and Chinese history. That being said, the exact specifics of the Tang Dynasty and the dynasties surrounding it, not so much, so.
Where Winds Meet is a wuxia story, and if you're new to this genre, that can feel intimidating in ways that aren't immediately obvious, because it operates on a set of assumptions, values, and symbols that are—
Dude, did Laufey, like, lean into her microphone and go, okay, we're gonna sell the ASMR for this too, it's gonna be crazy.
easily understood by Chinese people, but tend to be surrounded in mystery to the average Westerner. Where Winds Meet was my first real exposure to wuxia storytelling, and while I was deeply drawn to the world, I also found myself pausing often and trying to understand why the story framed certain moments the way it did. Over time, that confusion turned into context, and context turned into appreciation.
This is Laufey? Yeah, this is Laufey. This is literally Laufey. And this is what I said. I was like, Laufey, I don't even recognize, like, it's like a completely different brand. And this is what Laufey's been going with lately. And I think it's a W on her part. Is she's really enjoyed making, like, lore videos. She did one for Chrono Odyssey too. The full lore of, like, the Chrono Odyssey history and stuff. It's one of her best YouTube videos. It was her first lore video, and this is her second lore video ever. And I think she does, like, a spectacular job with these. I think she should lean more into this, like, for straight up.
That understanding didn't come only from learning history and theory, but also from the patience and insight of the Chinese Where Winds Meet community, who took the time to explain how these stories are meant to be read and understood. This video has no spoilers or summaries. Instead, it is a toolbox for you to use when approaching the story. With that in mind, let's start at the beginning. What wuxia actually is, and what it expects from people who step into its world. The term wuxia is made up of two characters, wu meaning martial skill or martial arts, and xia meaning righteousness and chivalry. Together, they describe
I am at least 50% of those things.
Moral action expressed through martial ability. Thus, a typical wuxia story centers on people who live by personal codes of honor and justice, often
That's me!
acting outside formal authority. It's important to understand that this distance from formal authority is not a grand rejection of order or a theme of personal rebellion. Instead,
Didn't you say you were a black belt? Yeah, I'm a second degree black belt. It's upstairs. I won the Midwest Cup St. Louis Cup, all kinds of cups. I was really good. I was actually really, really good. Not so much anymore, but I used to be.
reflects a belief in balance and the recognition that systems of power, while necessary to a functioning society, do not always act justly. Any good story would not exist without conflict. In wuxia, conflict arises because the structures meant to govern fairly have failed or fallen into chaos. It is within this uncertainty that wuxia stories take place, not during times of stability, but at moments when moral responsibility shifts from institutions to people. What distinguishes wuxia from stories that are simply historical or fantastical is its emphasis on ethical choice over destiny. Heroes are not chosen by prophecy, nor do they wield supernatural power to save the world on their own. They are ordinary people, shaped by circumstance, who act when balance has been disrupted, often reluctantly and guided by duty to the greater good, rather than personal desire.
I feel like I've already learned more than I would learn in a fucking high school history class. We're 2 minutes into the video, bro. Holy shit. Okay, all right, I get it. I'm following. I'm tracking.
It's also important to understand that while wuxia rejects the common Western theme of a chosen one superhero, it does not reject the idea of exceptional people. Wuxia heroes are extraordinary, but not because power is granted to them from the outside.
Okay, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. This is crazy, bro. I'm not gonna lie. When she was coming up those steps, as crazy as that scene was, because you're like fighting to the death and you're throwing people down, right? That was pretty hot. I'm just saying. That was pretty hot.
Instead, they rise from ordinary lives and become extraordinary through virtue, extreme discipline in martial arts, the strength of character to do the right thing even when the odds are directly.
She killed Ruby. That's why she's so attractive. I also like killing terrorists.
Against them, and the heart to sacrifice everything, not for a specific person they care about, but for the safety of people they may never get to meet or talk to. To be extraordinary in wuxia is to stand against chaos with restraint and integrity. In Where Winds Meet, understanding this framework helps explain why characters act quietly rather than dramatically, why sacrifice is treated as noble rather than tragic, and why the story consistently asks not what someone can do, but what they must do when the moment arrives. With that foundation in place, we can now look at some of the key concepts and themes that appear repeatedly in wuxia stories, including Where Winds Meet. One reason the term Jianghu often causes confusion for Western audiences is that it gets mistaken for the name of a world, when in reality it functions more like a shared framework. To understand it, imagine if I recommended you a game that's set in medieval fantasy Europe. Even before I explain the plot, from that description alone, you can already picture some possible common themes of the setting.
My understanding of what Jianghu is it's basically like the Wild West for America, but for China. It's like the Wild West, but Chinese. You know what I'm saying? Like the Western frontier.
There are probably knights and castles. Magic probably exists in some form. There may be dragons, elves, dwarves, ancient artifacts, old gods, and abandoned ruins.
Welcome to the John.
The detail.
We've got fun and games.
What? Guys! Come on, now. That might just have to be... Honestly, that might just have to be the intro to my vlog video from China, to be honest. Maybe we lead off with that. Maybe we lead off with that song.
Vary from story to story.
Oh my God.
The term medieval fantasy itself carries a set of assumptions that help you understand the kind of world you're entering before you know anything else.
The emotionally devastating storyline only increased my gacha comfort spend limit. Well, people see their storyline does, different things for different people. People grieve in different ways.
Jianghu works in a similar way, but instead of describing a fantasy setting, it describes a social and moral landscape with its own assumed elements. Literally meaning rivers and lakes, the Jianghu...
That's a dude, right? What's going on here, Scott?
Refers to a world that exists alongside official society. When a story takes place in the Jianghu, certain things
That's Laufey's character. I don't know if I've ever made a character in a video game and been like, I want to refer to this character as they, them.
are implicitly present. You can expect martial artists trained in distinct schools,
What?
wandering swordsmen,
What?
sects with long histories, Shaolin monks, assassins, healers, and people who have stepped outside ordinary life. Authority in the Jianghu
In
comes
fairness, they, them have gorgeous hair.
from skill and restraint. A monk, a doctor, or a swordsman may all command respect, not because
Oh, we have a bird that looks like that here in Missouri. It's called the black-capped chickadee.
of who they serve,
I even know it's a
but because of
I know all the birds and the calls as a biologist.
who they have proven themselves to be. Importantly, the Jianghu is not a separate realm cut off from the rest of society. It intertwines with everyday life and responds directly to its failures. When governments are stable and just, the Jianghu fades
Is breakthrough in 20 hours or 44 hours? I honestly don't know.
into the background. When
I think it's in 44 hours.
institutions become corrupt, the Jianghu becomes active, stepping in to resolve conflicts that official systems have failed to address. In this sense, the Jianghu is less a physical place and more a condition, one that emerges when people believe balance must be restored through personal action rather than formal authority. Understanding the Jianghu this way helps explain why characters in wuxia stories recognize one another by reputation alone, why sect affiliations carry so much weight, and why conflicts are often resolved through personal encounters. Martial arts in the Jianghu aren't only fighting styles, but a reflection of one's inner self, a discipline that is a personal legacy, a kind of mark that brands a person with a hint
There is no way there is no way that you saw two moderately looking, non-pale skinned, darker skinned people and you called it the Zhang Hood. It's a crazy word. It's not funny. It's not funny at all.
of who they are. Earlier, when talking about wuxia, I mentioned that good stories cannot happen without conflict. In wuxia, that conflict usually takes the form of moral or social imbalance. The response to that imbalance
I bet we beat that
is the
person's ass
Jianghu
now, by the way.
itself. Much like hearing medieval fantasy immediately brings certain expectations to mind, invoking the Jianghu signals that something is out of balance and that the story will follow those who step forward to restore that balance. With that understanding of wuxia and the Jianghu in place, we can now talk about the mandate of heaven, a concept that shapes how order and responsibility function in these stories. The word heaven here can be misleading to Western audiences. It is a translation that doesn't fully capture the original meaning because this is not a personal divine
Auntie Han, my queen.
being that people pray to or expect miracles from. Instead, this heaven refers to a cosmic and moral order, a way of observing whether the world is in balance or not. Heaven does not intervene directly in response to prayers. It bestows that intervention onto the common people. When rulers act justly and society remains balanced, they are said to possess heaven's mandate. When corruption and chaos spread, that mandate is understood
Chat, who's the prettier girl on the screen right now?
to be lost. Wuxia heroes are not
Did you just say you? Go f yourself.
agents of heaven, but respondents to
You
it.
know what? I'm taking that compliment. Thank you, dipshit chatter.
In this sense, the mandate of heaven is not about destiny, but about consequence. It explains why stories focus on ordinary people stepping up during times of collapse, why restoring balance matters more than personal victory, and why the Jianghu exists as a moral space where action fills the gap left by failing systems. Seen through this lens, the mandate of heaven is the thread that ties wuxia and the Jianghu together. History tells us when balance was lost. Wuxia shows how people respond to that loss, and the Jianghu is where those responses take shape. It's worth taking a
Holy, it's like I'm in. I thought this was supposed to be a lore video. I'm learning stuff. This is disgusting. This is disgusting. She's even got like vocabulary definitions here.
Moment to explore common meaningful themes in
It's actually very well laid out.
wuxia stories, because many of the ideas they rely on can feel unfamiliar when viewed through a Western storytelling lens, which runs the risk of completely losing the entire point of why a certain event in the story is powerful or meaningful.
I don't like learning anything. I like leering things.
One of the most persistent ideas in wuxia is that times of chaos give rise to heroes. Closely tied to this is the Confucianist belief that the world is not saved by one person,
The
but
madman
by
actually bought the
collective
shirts.
virtue
It's a
of
good
a
hoodie, bro.
generation.
Nice
Order is
heavy hoodie.
restored not through a lone savior, but through many people making difficult, principled choices over time. This is why wuxia
His shirt. Honestly, I'm just looking for a girl that will say that, but about the rest of me. Thanks, man.
stories often feel less interested in individual triumph and more focused on shared experiences. Collective stability outweighs individual tragedy, and personal suffering is often framed as meaningful if it contributes to restoring balance for others. This leads to another key distinction.
All right,
Noble
Blue,
sacrifice-
What have you learned so far?
What have I leered so far? I've leered a lot about the story. Okay, so we learned that all right, hold on. Let's see how much is thinking in. Okay, and in fairness, her voice is a little distracting. Okay, I think we can all admit her voice is a little distracting. I have learned that the wuxia itself does not actually, it's not like a Marvel superhero storyline, right? It's just normal people that are called to do extraordinary things, right? And the Zhonghu, well, I had the correct impression. The Zhonghu is kind of where it happens, kind of like the Wild West, right? The place, the where that creates the situation, right? Blue learned that he likes the items. Okay, it's not dentage. I got it right. Okay. Mavi sounds hot when she's not doing the XQC stutter. Guys, be respectful. Said the same thing about me.
is treated as triumphant rather than tragic. In Western narratives, sacrifice sometimes emphasizes loss or injustice. In wuxia, sacrifice is frequently presented as fulfillment. Giving something up, even one's life,
This is a cool
is not
quest line,
framed
by
as
the way.
senseless if it preserves moral order or protects the many. The emotional weight comes not from what is lost, but from what is upheld. The focus is inherently different, not on the individual's suffering, but on what collective benefit that suffering enables. Wuxia also places greater importance on destiny over personal freedom, though not in the sense of fate being imposed from above. Destiny
quest line was
here
hard.
reflects responsibility shaped by circumstance. Contrasting a common Western perspective that everyone has the right to act as they believe, in wuxia, the concept of having the right to ignore imbalance without consequence is not entertained. When the world is out of order, the question is not what someone wants to do, but what
The Zhonghu you can think of as an underground syndicate network that manifests itself during political instability, kind of like the mafia underworld, but not really mafia. I think it's a little bit more than that. I don't think I view the Zhonghu as basically just political insurrection. You know? But I feel like there's a piece of it that kind of is that, right? Because like the political aspect, like the political systems that should be upholding the moral law of the world have failed, and you have to take matters into your own hand. But I wouldn't say they're necessarily trying to overthrow the government per se.
must be done. Personal desire is secondary to moral necessity. This is why the main
Watch
character
new
in a
trailer. Is there a new trailer for this game?
wuxia story is rarely a powerful chosen one or a superhero figure. Instead, they function as a reflection of others and of the mandate of heaven itself. They are a common person who steps forward at the right moment, embodying values that already exist within the world. Their importance comes not from exceptional power, but from their willingness to act
It's a bunch
when
of Robin
action
Hoods.
is
What up, ladies?
required.
Kira, how you doing, buddy?
Keeping these themes in mind changes how the story is read. Endings may feel unresolved if one expects personal closure, rather than restored balance. And history itself becomes
I got closure when the child was murdered. Just closure. And in fairness, I think that had they done that more in the story, I would have ended up being robbed less. Yeah. I would have been scammed less, robbed less, and honestly, those same children went on to try to kill me several times. Several times.
Wolf underscore
So,
underscore
if we've learned
Mandalore Dex
anything-
100, Jianying literally tried to overthrow the government. I'm more ways than one.
Okay, well, I don't know any of that about Tianying.
more than background. It becomes the source of the moral pressure that makes these choices necessary. Before we move into history, it's worth clarifying what this section is and what it isn't. Chinese history is vast, layered, and deeply worth learning in its own right.
Yes, I
But
did,
that
Sakura.
isn't the goal here. What follows is a highly selective look at real historical events that directly shape the world of Where Winds Meet. Chosen only
Well, it's
because
like the
they
world
have
of China, though,
explicit
right?
influence on the story and its characters. This is real Chinese history that the game repeatedly draws from to create the narrative. You don't need to memorize dates or names to enjoy the story, but understanding a handful of these events makes it much easier to grasp it. The main story quest of Where Winds Meet begins in the year 962, which is a very fragile period when the wounds of the world have not yet even begun to heal. Qinghe and Kaifang lie under the rule of the Song dynasty, but the Song is only 2 years old at this point. It was founded right after the Five Dynasties period, a half-century defined by rapid regime changes, warlord rule, betrayal from within, and constant bloodshed. The present-day Song dynasty inherited an exhausted nation. Because of that, the Song's current priority is stability, centralization, and control. To the north, the greatest unresolved pressure comes from Khitan Liao dynasty, a rival power built on military strength.
I could have sworn that all the dynasties existed. Oh my god. Okay, set chat. All right, just bear with me. Okay. I could have sworn that the dynasties existed like one after the other. And although there is some overlap, I don't really see the Chinese dynasties as necessarily competing with each other all at the same time. I feel like one happens, and then as one is going down, another one takes over, and then this one, goes down, and then the next one takes over, right? Like that's how I see it.
Pursuing expansion through military aggression and territorial leverage rather than constant conquest. 26 years ago, during the Five Dynasties period, the Yanyun 16 prefectures were ceded to the Khitans by a ruler seeking their support. This was a great loss of strategic land, but also a profound act of betrayal. With Yanyun under Khitan rule, the northern border lives under constant tension, shaped by the pressure of their presence. To the south, the southern...
Isn't that what happened with the horse guy? I feel like the horse guy on his... I feel like the horse guy that killed the entire city he was supposed to be protecting so that he could get more troops. I feel like that...
Tang remains not as an open enemy, but as a lingering remnant of the old order. In 962, it survives through diplomacy and tribute. Its continued existence is a quieter pressure on the Song because it is a persistent reminder that unification is not yet complete. 16 years ago, during the Five Dynasties period,
I'm sure to bet Blue didn't learn a single thing. I already listed all the shit that she had gone through earlier in the video. I've learned a lot so far. What the fuck are you talking about?
these pressures came to a breaking point. During the Battle of Zhongdu Bridge, General Du Chongwei betrayed his own dynasty, defecting to the Khitans and abandoning his ally Wang Qing in the middle of battle that otherwise could have been won. Left with his forces pinned against the river and without support, Wang Qing and his soldiers were slaughtered. Much like the loss of Yanyun, this was another terrible act of betrayal, with the Khitan Liao pressure once again causing catastrophic loss of life. In the final years of the Five Dynasties period, desperation ran so deep that even sacred boundaries eroded. Buddhist statues were melted down for copper, an act widely frowned upon and bordering on sacrilege, but justified at the time due to the severe material shortage. It was not an attack on belief, but a desperate measure taken when resources ran out. When the Song finally took power, Tang Dynasty coins were systematically melted down and replaced. Currency was centralized, standardized, and reissued under Song authority, a deliberate act meant to signal that the old order was truly over. Sacrifice.
Have you faced it? By the way, there's us. Look, that's me. That's me. Bro, this cutscene was, like, actually cinema, by the way.
And comfort of the pew to ensure a more stable future in the eyes of the Song. And this brings us to the present day in the game. In 962, life under the Song feels different depending on where you stand. In Kaifeng, the capital, there is a cautious sense of order returning. Bureaucracy functions again, markets reopen, and officials project confidence. But beneath that structure is a population that remembers how quickly dynasties collapse. While
Yeah, dude, they went through like a gajillion dynasties like really fast, so it's really hard to keep track of.
you and I know that the Song dynasty will endure for a long time. For the people living at the time, the Song is only 2 years old. After the Five Dynasties period, when rulers and regimes changed with unsettling frequency, faith in any government's longevity is hard-earned. In Qinghe, closer to the northern border, that sense of security is thinner. Military presence is heavier, memories of conflict.
I'm sorry. It's hard to take her seriously when she's walking around with this lady boy. Might have a penis, might not have a penis style character here. I would be able to focus a lot more if it was just very clearly a male or a female character.
More immediate.
Now I'm sitting in this state of sexual confusion. I don't know how to feel.
Authority of the state feels more conditional. People here are not dreaming of prosperity or reform. They're hoping for continuity, for a government that lasts longer than the last one, and for a peace that actually, finally lasts. Politically, the Song presents itself as legitimate, restrained, and moral, but it governs a population shaped by betrayal, scarcity, and repeated collapse. Socially, people have learned to rely on personal bonds, reputation, and obligation just as much as on law or office. This is the world where Windsmeet opens into. A land where authority exists, but trust in that authority is still fragile.
Perfect way of stating it. Perfect way of stating it. That world still exists and authority is there, but trust in that authority is fragile. Absolutely perfect. Especially after what happened with the gold monkey guy that stole everybody's money and absorbed a bunch of... And then, you know, like, we had to kill him and he had like 3 feet of that guy.
Where betrayal is a recurring, painful memory, and where order is...
Also the guy that killed all of his own, like, people so that he could get more reinforcements at the border.
new enough that many are still watching to see
You get people like Tian Ying, Giga Chad.
whether it will hold. It is within this landscape that the Jianghu persists, not as an opposition to the state, but as a parallel, moral space that fills the gaps left by...
Yes! Yes! See, you guys are all like, it's Robin Hood, it's a bunch of insurrectionists, it's a bunch of people that are trying to overthrow the government. That's not what it is at all. Listen to what she just said.
It is within this landscape that the Jianghu persists, not as an opposition to the state, but as a parallel, moral space that fills the gaps left by fragile institutions.
Yes, because the state institutions don't have everything covered yet, and there's still moral injustice going on in the world, and people take it upon themselves to enforce those moral injustices. See? I have learned.
Where disputes are settled, debts are
You guys are the that didn't learn anything during this video. I learned.
honored.
So Robin Hood. No. Robin Hood exists as a factual, like, just stood against the state. He was basically an insurrectionist, okay? Basically an insurrectionist. And Robin Hood, steal from the rich, give to the poor. He hated the government. He hated the government. Every government system, he tried to exploit it. So that, and in fairness, what he was doing was a good thing, right? In theory, theoretically, right? Where he's trying to give to the poor, he's trying to do what he feels is morally right, but he's very obviously oppositional to the state. What she's trying to explain with the Jianghu here in the Wuxia here is that she's trying to say that these people are not Robin Hood. They do exist to fill moral gaps, like giving money to the poor, but they're not doing it by exploiting the current government. They're doing it by, you know, whatever they feel is right, right? Because the government is shaky and isn't like fully formed yet, right? There's new dynasties every other fucking day at this point, and they can't really fully trust the government to fill in all the gaps, so they have to do it themselves by just being good, hardworking, honest people. That's what it's about.
And justice
Holy, I learned so much watching this. This is crazy.
is pursued
This
through
crazy.
personal reputation rather than official decree. By this point, you've seen the two forces that shape Where Winds Meet laid out side by side. On one hand, wuxia storytelling with its emphasis on moral obligation, collective responsibility, and the belief that balance is restored not by institutions, but by people willing to act when they must. On the other, a historical world marked by collapse, betrayal, scarcity, and a population that has learned, through experience, that order is fragile. What gives Where Winds Meet its particular weight is not either of these elements on their own, but the way they intertwine to tell the story. The turbulence of the Five Dynasties period explains why wuxia values take root so deeply here. Decades of instability taught people that dynasties rise and fall, borders shift, and even sacred institutions can fail under pressure. When systems prove unreliable, meaning moves into a quiet understanding that if balance is to be restored, it will be restored by the hands of the common people. And this is where the Jianghu emerges.
There it is.
So when you step into the world of Where Winds Meet, you are not entering a fantasy setting that exists in its own fictional bubble. Real history explains why the present feels cautious, why trust is limited, and why characters often act with a sense of
I think that Laufey would be proud of me. I learned everything.
inevitability rather than hope. Wuxia explains why, despite all of this, the story still believes in moral action, in balance restored through effort and responsibility, rather than miracles or chosen heroes. In a land shaped by repeated collapse, order does not return all at once. It is rebuilt gradually by people willing to act when institutions fail. That belief is where wuxia and history come together, and it is the lens through which Where Winds Meet asks to be understood. Building on what we've covered here, I'm currently working on a full Qinghe lore summary, one that looks beyond just the main story.
That's how you say that, is Chiha? Well, why didn't they just spell it? Why we got a Q in there?
To examine the broader narrative and lore surrounding Qinghe, including its
Oh, Qinghe. Oh, Qinghe. Okay, I get it now. Okay, well, why don't we just spell it that way?
characters, side stories, and the
I struggle to pronounce this.
historical forces that connect them. If this video helped you find your footing, that project is meant to be a deeper exploration once you're ready for it. So please look forward to it. And thank you for watching.
Here's the video right here. I recommend going and interact with it. Definitely really good. Some of the best lore videos that are made for Where Winds Meet.